Good day, everyone. We're down to the last lesson of Module 1, Learning Plans in the Context of the 21st Century, with Lesson 2 entitled ICT in Pedagogy, Integration, and Language Learning Plans. But before that, let me share my screen. I hope the presentation is visible to you. Okay, once again, this is Module 2, Learning Plans in the Context of the 21st Century. Here are the learning outcomes, once again, of Module 2. At the end of the module, the student should have discussed the role of technology for teaching and learning in the light of the K-12 curriculum framework, review the K-12 curriculum guide focusing on the development of 21st century skills, reviewed learning plans from various sources that integrated ICTs in the teaching learning process, planned activities integrating ICTs that would facilitate the development of 21st century skills required in the curriculum guide, brainstorm about digital citizenship and relate this to the development of 21st century skills among learners. So for this particular lesson, we will be focusing on lesson 2, the ICT pedagogy integration in language learning plans. Here are the lesson outcomes for lesson 2. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to discuss essential points to consider when integrating any ICT in facilitating language education. 2, present learning plans that integrate ICT in the teaching in the learning procedures to be able to attain the learning outcomes, because your main output for lesson 2 would be a learning plan. Number 3, I think this is the last one, plan for some activities that will develop digital citizenship and relate this to the development of 21st century skills among learners. Okay. Teaching has always been a challenging profession since knowledge has been expanding and essential skills have been increasing and changing, especially that we are now on the concept of 21st century generation. Therefore, we have to harness the 21st century skills among sa to ang mga estudyante. That is why also the teaching profession has also a particular challenge, because since our students are changing when it comes to capabilities and abilities, teachers also should also change. No, we should also we should also conform to the changing environment so as to the changing capabilities of our students. Teachers need to engage educational technologies to assist them in, of course, the teaching learning process. Kasi nga, mainly our students nowadays are tech savvy. They are what we call digital natives, no? And then perhaps our teachers can be termed as digital, what do you call this? Digital immigrants. But for the new generation of teachers, they belong to the group of digital natives, no? Meaning to say, the new generation of teachers are also tech savvy, as we call it. Okay, understanding this will help you successfully integrate technology to allow your students to demonstrate the intended learning outcomes of your field of specialization. Because at the end of the day, children, aside from we are to be tech savvy as teachers, we also have to teach our students to be a tech savvy at the same time, a responsible citizen, or when it comes to netizenship, as I have mentioned. So let's try to look at here the different concepts and principles on how we integrate technology in delivering our instruction. So we have here various educators and researchers provided the following concepts and principles about integrating technology in instruction. So we have first John Pisapia, 1994. We also have the group ISTE, International Society for Technology and Education. Meron silang certification. No, I actually plan to be certified sa ISTE, but the certification is very mahal. No, it runs up to 15,000 to 20,000 to be certified. And then we also have here Margaret Lloyd, 2005. And then very partner when it comes to ICT integration, we have Kiyon Wang and Wiley Tu of 2007. We also have here Bernadette Bahati of 2010, and of course, hindi nawawala si UNESCO of 2005. They have um, they have these principles and concepts on how we really integrate technology and what are the reasons and factors that that may pertain. Why do we have to integrate ICT in our instruction? So let's have first John Pisapia. John Pisapia is actually a professor of a renowned university. So, according to him, integrating technology with teaching means the use of learning technologies to introduce, reinforce, supplement, and of course extend skills. And I think that's the reason why we are going to integrate technology in our lesson, because we really wanted to not just introduce our concept, but really to reinforce our teaching. No, we really wanted technology to help us in discussing abstract concepts, no, na mas madali siyang maintindihan. And of course, we really have to look at for an extension of skills, because at the end of the day, if we're going to use technology, we can actually utilize and form another skills, no. The other one, for example, if a teacher merely tells a student to read a book without any preparation for activities that put the book in a pedagogical content, the book is not integrated. No, kanang you just have to mention sa mga estudyante na, okay, please read the contents of page 1 to 10, and that's it. No, kung wala siya follow-up activities, no, if you don't have anything to do right after reading pages 1 to 10, therefore, then book is not part of what we call integration. In the same way, if the teacher uses the computer to reward children by allowing them to play a game, the computer is not integrated. So we really have to make sure that we introduce something, we reinforce something, and of course, we get skills coming from the integration of technology. On the other hand, integrating technology into curricula can mean different things. The first one is computer science courses, no, computer science assisted instruction, and or computer enhanced or enriched instruction. We also have matching software with basic skill, competencies, and of course, keyboarding with word processing follow up with presentation tools. If we're going to look at here, nagid siya concept sa integration of technology, because right after doing something, they have an extension of an activity, no? Right after doing or using computer, like for example, keyboarding with word processing, they follow up with it with presentation tools, and that is what we call integration. Another thing we have is ISTE, no, the International Society for Technology and Education. Effective integration of technology is achieved when students are able to select technology tools to help them obtain information in a timely manner. Like for example, if the teacher would instruct you have to make a video presentation of like this, no? And then right after that, they can select technology tools for them to prepare the activity in an easy way. Therefore, that is an effective ICT integration. Okay. And then the technology should become an integral part of how the classroom functions, as accessible as all other classroom tools. No, meaning to say, when we say integral part of how the classroom functions, the normal way, no, every day or our day-to-day living inside sa atong classroom, we actually use or integrate ICT in a normal manner, as we say. We also have here Margaret Lloyd of 2005. ICT integration, according to her, encompasses an integral part of broader curriculum reforms, which include both infrastructural as well as pedagogical considerations that are changing not only how learning occurs, but what is learned. And that is really true, no? Because I think the reason why we are to modernize our infrastructure, I think it is because of the presence of ICT. Because when you are to integrate ICT in the education curricula, it actually requires a lot of money, no, of course, and of course it requires a lot of infrastructural. And right after that, since we have our infrastructure, I think it is quite imperative also to reform our pedagogy, because we are to integrate ICT. We do away with the conventional way of teaching, and we are to do the modernized form. But then again, we it doesn't mean that we if we're going to integrate ICT in our instruction, we do away the non-conventional. What I mean is that the conventional way of teaching. There is still the presence of conventional teaching, but then again, I think when it comes to the 21st century type of classroom, we really have to harness or really have to use the non-conventional way of delivering our instruction, and that is by integrating ICT to our instruction and of course to our pedagogical considerations. We also have here two persons, no, Ki-Yun Wang and Lit Wu of 2007. They have their research. No, I will be uploading their researches. No, so according to them, integrating ICT DAO, integrating ICT or the process of integrating ICT into teaching and learning is a growing area that has attracted many educators' efforts in recent years. Actually, very common, no? I think the pagpasok pa lang ng year 2000, I think there are a lot of researches done on how impactful and how effective is integrating ICT to the teaching learning process, no? And then most of the results sa research, they have this significant increase of performance when it comes performance, no, perhaps it's either in comprehension level, in different skills, no, so positive kayo ang impact sa ICT integration. Okay, so that is for Ki-Yun Wang and Wiley Wu 2007. We have here Bernard Bahati of 2010. Bernard Bahati also provided research for the integration of technology in instruction. The process of integrating ICT in teaching and learning has to be done at both pedagogical and technological levels, with much emphasis put on pedagogy. If you are to remember your CPE 107, your TTL1, one of the concepts there is your TPAC, or the technological, pedagogical content knowledge. No, it is because when we integrate ICT, we're not just integrating it na in such a manner that if you are going to have your lesson, gumamit ka lang ng PowerPoint presentation and that's it. No, when we are to integrate teaching according to Bernard Bahati, it is now the process of doing it pedagogically and of course technologically. No, we have to change our pedagogy in response to the technological level, with much emphasis, of course, on pedagogical level. Okay, so that's it. No, so they come hand in hand. No, that is why you're very familiar with TPAC, or the technological pedagogical content knowledge. So that is a combination of how to transfer knowledge, or how to discuss the content while doing ICT, somewhat like that. No, so that's the concept of TPAC at some point. The last one we have is the other one. ICT integration into teaching learning has to be underpinned by sound pedagogical principles. Yeah, that's true. That is why during your CP 107, your teacher mentioned about the different pedagogical principles. No, of course you still have to remember constructivism, the behaviorism, because that is still part. No, in ICT integration, nahimo na siya because of some pedagogical principles and educational principles, no, so na sila reason why do we have to look at it. That is why really, if we're going to look at the discussion of Bernard Bahati, the process of integrating ICT really is we have to do it pedagogically and technologically. Next would be the last one, the UNESCO, or the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. So nai-article ang UNESCO ang year 2005. According to UNESCO, ICT integration is not merely mastering the hardware and software skills. No? It's beyond that. No? Hindi lang pwede na you memorize the hardware or the components of a computer and that's it. No? So it's beyond that. So teachers need to realize how to organize the classroom to structure the learning path so that ICT resources become automatic and natural response to the requirements for learning environments. No, automatic siya. I think it was mentioned by um, what do you call this? It was mentioned by the the ISTE that we really have to structure our classroom in such a manner that every time we do some things sa atong lesson, automatically we use technology. So integral part na gid siya sa atong classroom. So that is also why classrooms no nowadays they have corners for ICT. Okay, because they really wanted to make sure that ICT or technology is integral part of the classroom. Okay, the same with the concept and the discussion made by UNESCO of 2005. Okay, so I hope those by the way those are the various educators and researchers following the concepts and principles about integrating technology in instruction. So we have of course John Pisapia once again. We have ISTE. We have Margaret Lloyd, Kiyun Wang, and Violet Wu. And then Bernard Bahati, and then of course UNESCO. Madami pa yan, but then again, we just have to emphasize them. No? By the way, most of them are teachers, no, they are professors, and they are an advocate for ICT integration. Next would be the information and communication technology. So before you can successfully integrate ICTs in your language instruction, there is a need to have a good grasp of what information and communication technology is all about. Specifically, there is a need also to determine the ICTs that are available for language education because since different field of specializations require different ICT tools po siya naka-specified po. So the following are the definitions of ICT from various sources. So again, these are their definitions of ICT. So we have from Morson of 2005. We have Tini of 2009. Of course, we also have UNESCO of 2020. And the last one, we have Ratiswari of 2018. Let's start first with Morson of 2005. According to him, ICT includes all the full range of computer hardware, computer software, and telecommunications facilities. So that is the definition of Morson when it comes to ICT. Thus, it includes computer devices ranging from handheld calculators to multi-million worth supercomputers. It includes the full range of display and projections devices used to view computer output, and also it includes local area networks and wide area network that will allow computer systems in people to communicate with each other. Also, it includes digital cameras, computer games, CDs, DVDs, cell telephones, telecommunication satellites, and fiber optics. It also includes computerized machinery and computerized robots. So that is the definition of, that is how Morrison projected what is ICT all about. Okay. We also have from Tino of 2009. According to him, ICT daw is a diverse set of technological tools, and that is true because there are a lot of technological tools na kadepende kung anong gusto mong gamit and resources used to communicate, create, disseminate, store, and manage information. Sa communication pa lang, we have a lot. We can use iPad, we can use cell phone, we can use cell phone, we can use your computer with different kinds of software. So we have a diverse set of technological tools. These technologies include hardware devices, software applications, internet connectivity, broadcasting technologies, and of course, and telephony. Next, by UNESCO of 2020, ICT is a diverse set of technological tools, the same with Tinio, no? ICT is a diverse set of technological tools and resources used to transmit, store, create, share, or exchange information. These technological tools and resources include, of course, we have computers, we have the internet, live broadcasting technologies. We also have recorded broadcasting technologies. And then we have telephony, no? Fixed or mobile. We have satellite, we have visual, video conferencing, etc. Ang dami. And then UNESCO defines it also as a scientific, technological, and engineering discipline and managed technique used. ICT also refers to handling information, its application and association with social, economic, and cultural matters. Because if you are going to look at here, ICT has a great impact not just to education but also to socio-economic of a particular country. You know, most especially if the country is very advanced, like for example, US, some parts of Europe, some parts of course, all parts of Japan and China. They're very advanced when it comes to technology. That is why ICT for them has a great impact to socio-economic and of course cultural. Last one we have is from Ratiswari, the concept of ICT from Ratiswari 2018. Information communication technologies influence every aspect of human life, and that is true, no? Starting from mumata ka, sa bahay mong gamitin mong cellphone right after, and then magluto ka, you will use your rice cooker and so on. Magpainit ng tubig, you will use your heater, and then if you have your bread, you can use your toaster or something like that. So ang dami, and that is true that every aspect of human life affects, ICT can affect actually every angle and aspects of human life. They play salient roles in workplaces, in business, education, and entertainment. And according to them, especially nowadays in this particular generation, ICT has actually impacted from every corner of the world, no? Because right after doing something inside your house, if you're going to go out, everything is on technology. Moreover, many people recognize ICTs as catalysts for change that include change in working conditions. Yes, that is true. Handling and exchanging information. Sa una, busy kayo ang mga kanang mga mail delivery, no? Kana sila. But now, because of electronic mail, we can just easily send mail in another country, no? Teaching methods, yes, nausab ang atong teaching methods because we see to it that ICT has place in the teaching learning process. No, we are not just using Manila paper anymore. We are using now our PowerPoint presentation and of course our projector. Okay. Learning approaches the same, no, since our teaching methods are also affected by the influence or influenced by ICT. Also, our learning approaches change now. Scientific research and in accessing information communication technologies. Long ago, when you are to access information, it's very difficult because you are to you have to go to library and then dili pa yun kompleto ang resources sa library. That is why you go to public library and then you get to encounter a lot of books and then you have to read a lot of books for you to find the best information. But now, dali na kayo ang pag-access sa information. In this digital era, ICT is important in the classroom for giving students opportunities to learn and apply the required 21st century skills. ICT improves teaching and learning and helps teachers perform their role as creators of pedagogical environments. So when it comes to ICT integration, the education roles sa education era. ICT helps a teacher to present his or her teaching attractively and enables learners to learn at any level of an educational program. Okay. Okay, of course, this is the big lift of ICT, no? ICT improves teaching and learning process. Okay, so we are done listening to the different definitions of ICT from different people and organizations. So we have definitions from Morrison, from Tinio, from of course UNESCO, and of course with Ratiswari. Now let's try to look at the different frameworks that ICT integration has in the language education learning. So let's try to look at that. There are a lot of concepts provided by experts relevant to integrating technology in instruction apart from above citations. No? The kanto yun kay ko, I did mention, I actually emphasize it that hindi lang sila yung mga tao at organizations that actually come into ICT integration, ang dami pa, because there are a lot of researchers and then organizations that implemented and then sorted different definitions of ICT and how ICT can be integrated to the teaching learning process. Okay. These concepts are very helpful to clarify lingering issues on how technologies are properly integrated in the teaching learning process, because we have that problem, no? Because I have been telling you that by the time you will be using ICT, we have to use them appropriately, because if we cannot use them appropriately, therefore technology cannot be technology cannot be effective in the teaching learning process. And it must be noted that there are possible instances when technologies are used in the classroom, but the way these are used does not promote learning and does not help facilitate the attainment of the intended learning outcomes set for a class. So there is a chance it is because siguro yung teacher hindi niya na test, hindi niya gaanong na realize or conceptualize that this particular ICT tool or technology is not appropriate for this for the learning outcomes intended for the topic. So that is why we really have to think for it really. There is a need, therefore, to enlighten you on the principles on how educational technologies contribute to the facilitation of the teaching learning process. For this purpose, the following framework may serve as a guide in integrating ICTs in developing learning plans or lesson plans, because again, you will be creating not just a lesson plan, no? Because I know you are familiar doing a lesson plan. So this is beyond lesson plan actually. This is learning plans, no? In the different subjects, particularly in developing learning plans or lesson plans in language education. As for your case, you will be creating learning plan for Filipino. And I hope you are very familiar with your curriculum guide, because you will be actually you will that is your partner for the whole duration of the course, no? Okay, so let's try to look at um, the first framework. Now we have conversational framework of Laurillard 2002. We also have the three fundamental elements of ICT integration by Wang of 2008. We have also here a framework from the categories for ICT in teacher training. And then the last one, I think, letter D, UNESCO ICT competency framework for teachers. So let's try to look at first conversational framework of Laurillard of 2002. Okay, this is conversational framework of Laurillard 2002. The teaching learning process possesses very complex tasks to allow learners to understand their lessons and master the skills they're expected to demonstrate. Thus, it will be reassuring if teachers will explore on engaging various media to support various learning activities in classroom. I did tell you also, I did emphasize to you that, again, in a particular lesson, you can actually use different technologies. It's just a matter of the term appropriate. Okay. This is how the conversational framework may support. No? The framework postulates a way of presenting teaching and learning in terms of events. So these are five key teaching and learning events in the framework, which are identified. By the way, this is the conversational framework. Okay, let's try to jump off. Okay, here are the five key teaching and learning events in the framework, which are identified as acquisition. We have discovery. We have also dialogue, practice, and of course, creation. Okay, so vis-a-vis The 5 events are specific teaching strategies, learning actions or experiences, related media form, examples of non-computer-based activity, and examples of computer-based activity. I would like you to look at our picture here. Okay, so this is actually adapted. This is by coming from Brown and his partner of 2005. This idea was adapted from the concept, the framework of Lorillard 2002. No, so we have the teaching and learning event. So these are the events, no, in the whole process of teaching learning process. We have first, of course, acquisition. Okay, we have discovery. We have the dialogue part here, the practice, and of course the creation. And please take note, right after the first column, we have 5 columns here. The first column is the teaching action or strategy. Okay, and then the learning action or the experience doing for the strategy. And then right after that, related media form, kung unsay pwede, no? And then examples of non-computer based activity, you can have that. An example of computer-based activity. Okay, let's just try to look at acquisition first, and then last would be creation. No, so for acquisition, meaning to say this is the time that you are to get something. No, so if we're going to look at the 5 events here, you are actually looking into a process, a hierarchical process. No, and then the first one is acquisition. Try to look at acquisition. Kung titingnan natin yung teaching action or strategy ng teacher is to show, no? Or to demonstrate, or to describe, and then to explain. Okay. And then the learning action or experience is attending. Pwede ding listening, no? Siguro si teacher is describing something, and then ang ipapagawa sa mga estudyante would be listening. Okay. So related media form is narrative. Okay, so linear, presentational, usually same text acquired. So yung pinakauna natin gagawin talaga in a particular lesson. By the way, I am telling you that this is beyond lesson planning. Okay, sige. And then of course, the last one would be creation. By the way, meron tayong non-computer based activity because we are also acknowledging the conventional way of doing our classes, no? So our 4th column here is the conventional way of doing it, and then the 5th column is the non-conventional way of doing, because this is computer based activity. Okay, so you just have to run through everything. Okay, so the L'Oreal conversational framework is relevant in the field of language education, since this field requires appropriate and complex use of various technologies. Nakadepende siya sa levels. If we're going to look at, once again, each event, there has to be appropriate and specific technology to be used. The framework clearly presents the way teaching events in language classrooms can be thoroughly related to their language learning events. So kung titingnan natin itong mga learning events natin, they have their specific computer-based activity. And then you can ask, sir, are there any computer-based activity? Dili ba na sila mag-overlap? There are times na mag-overlap sila. So it's just a matter of appropriateness, no? So like for example, for acquisition, kung buto na acquisition, pwede mo gamit ng email, diri og forum, blogs, somewhat like that. Because this is talking ng good po ng acquisition. But then again, we are to pick a computer-based activity which is more appropriate to that level. Okay. Next is okay, so the usefulness of LCF in language education was analyzed in a study that was conducted by Abir et al-Shiwa in 2016. So daghan na kay gi-conduct na research ani, and then yung ginamit nila is the LCF or the Lorillard's conversational framework. And then in a way, I will be posting the research, and then you can read the result of that research. Okay. So the study investigated and evaluated the effectiveness. I'll be telling you how effective is LCF in developing the writing component of foreign language learners, communicative competence in blended learning context as compared to a face-to-face context. Anyway, this is all about the framework, and then they tested the framework if it is effective. No. Okay. Next framework we have is the three fundamental elements of ICT integration by Wang 2008. Okay. Wang in 2008 posited that integration of ICT consists of three fundamental elements, according to Wang. No, he actually pondered that well, when it comes to ICT integration, if you're familiar with Wang, actually Wang was discussed with kanina, no. So si Kiyun Wang. No, so according to him, daw, when it comes to ICT integration, it's not just integrating ICT, integrating technology in between with what we call the teaching learning process. No, it's all about the three fundamental elements. And what are these? These are pedagogy, social interaction, and of course, the presence of technology. The ICT integration framework of Wang can be fully maximized in developing learning plans for language learning. So let's try to look at the ICT integration framework of Wang. Okay, so we have here pedagogy. The pedagogical in language learning context. Pedagogy often refers to the language teaching strategies. No, when we say pedagogy, that is actually the general term of approaches and methodologies. Okay, so when it comes to the language learning context, pedagogy often refers to the language teaching strategies or techniques that language teachers use to deliver their lessons and to allow their learners to demonstrate the curricular language competencies. That is what we call pedagogy. Okay. So the pedagogical element in language learning is very important as it primarily reflects the art of teaching a teacher will employ in the learning process. So, nagsugod, no? How to teach language education, how to teach English subject, how to teach Filipino subject, how to teach tayutay, how to teach grammar, how to teach a sentence, how to teach sanaysay, tula, and so on. So that is part of what we call pedagogy. And that is very important because if we're going to look at ICT integration, we cannot integrate ICT without doing pedagogy first. Okay. The next one to it is what we call the social interaction. Okay. The social interaction activities as one of the elements in the framework are crucial in language learning. With social interaction, learners will naturally acquire a language and develop language knowledge and skills that are important for them to live and work in various communities. That is why when we say social interaction, learning should, of course, kabalo na kaita that learning should not be contained in the four walls of the classroom. No, there should be social interaction, and by means social interaction, dili po na siya ingon nga literal nga kailangan jud ka makikistorya og tao so that you can have social interaction. The day-to-day social interaction or the day-to-day talking with other people outside your classroom is an example of what we call social interaction. And then the teacher and the learners may use computers to connect and learn through the computers. No, when you are doing Facebook every day, that is communication. When you are posting to your Facebook wall, that is now communication. When you are commenting to a particular idea in your Facebook, that is still social interaction. When you are messaging through Messenger, you are interacting to somebody, that is still social interaction. Okay. The next one, of course, is technology. If we're going to look at pedagogy and social interaction, na binigay ko na example, there is a presence of technology, and that is the picture of that is the how Wang picture ICT integration is, no? Because according to him, there is an integration or there is an interaction between among the three elements. Now we have pedagogy, we have social interaction, and technology. Mind you, everyone, that pedagogy is the interaction with the content. No? This is the time that we are to check kung unsa atong lesson, and then of course, this is the time that we can check what are the learning outcomes before we can say that we have to use this particular technology. And mind you, everyone, that when we say social interaction, this is literally interaction with people. Okay, so that is why it is very nice that language teachers should have or must have activities um, that they are doing the three. No, the teacher is discussing about the topic, and then the activity would have been used with a technology at the same time, interacting with people. That is why siguro in language education, for example, in English or in English and Filipino subjects, most of their activities really is to connect with people. Like for example, one of those siguro is blogging. No, they will be writing content sa blog, and then of course their blog will be shared publicly, and that people will read their content, and then they let people to comment their content. No, that is social interaction with a combination of pedagogy and technology. So that is the presentation of Wang when it comes to ICT integration. That has really, no, if we're going to look at really, sakto jud kaayo nga naa gyud siya interaction ng tulo. Di gyud mo siya mo away. It is because when you do things with technology, you're actually interacting with people. Okay. So that's it. That is the three fundamental elements of ICT integration by Wang of 2008. Okay. Another in the 21st century classrooms, the three components, pedagogy, social interaction, and technology, are needed in an ICT-based learning environment, especially sa mga eskwelahan nga really ga full feature gid sila sa ilahang ICT base, sa ilang ICT, no? Anyway, it doesn't mean that for those schools that are not into ICT, wala po sila kabutan. Of course, we also have our ICT-based learning environment, but in a minimal way because of the limitations when it comes to infrastructure. Okay. And then the challenge among learning institutions is to provide support for the integration to happen. Yeah, that is true. I think I did mention kanina that when it comes to ICT infrastructure, it requires a lot of money. It requires not just thousands but millions and billions of money. No, when it comes to ICT integration because of the infrastructure. Okay. Okay. Next would be the categories for information communication and technology in teacher training. There is a lot of researches that will prove that integration of ICTs can fully transform classroom instruction. And I would like to inform everyone that during my undergrad years, my research is all about ICT integration. No, I have, I have, I have this computer assisted. I forgot, but this that is more on ICT used sa ICT integration sa balay, sa school. And then what I did is I compared two approaches, no, or method. The other one, I teach the subject genetics, topic genetics, using the traditional way of teaching. I use the cartolina, I use the writing board and so on. No, but the other group naman, ang ginamit ko naman is ICT. I use computers, teaching what you call this the topic genetics. And then according to the result of my thesis, that really nagi significant increase sa ilang ang gitest maguna ko dito is their comprehension, at the same time the retention level. Okay, so naagid siya significant na retention level when you use ICT, no, when you use computer, no. That is true. Okay. And then the same, meron ding research, no, that can prove that integrating ICT can fully transform classroom instruction. We have here Haddad. Okay. Haddad in 2003 states that the teacher's use of ICT supports the development of HOTS and promotes collaboration, and that is true. There are a lot of researches done, and according to those research, and one of those is Haddad in 2003, that when you use ICT, especially when they are working on ICT or technological tools, that actually promotes HOTS and of course promotes collaboration. I think that's the main purpose why we are integrating ICT, because we are to promote collaboration. And remember that collaboration is one of the 21st century skills that should be harnessed to our students, and that should be promoted. No? And that is very nice for ICT integration. That is why really daghan jud kay campaign, no, daghan gid kay na siya or gi-encourage gid kayo na siya that we really have to integrate ICT in our lesson. We also have the research of Jong, okay? Um, for a successful ICT pedagogy integration training to take place, it will help if a training framework will be used as a guide. Jong of 2005 was able to organize various ICT teacher training efforts into 4 categories. So naa siya gihimo nga murag framework, and then these are their mga training efforts ni siya, and then he actually constructed 4 categories. Now, pakita lang nako. Okay. We actually have 4 here. According to Jong, we have ICT as main content focus. We also have here ICT as core delivery technology. We have ICT as part of content or methods, and we have ICT as facilitating or networking technology. Now, if we're going to look at the idea of Wong, siguro pwede ka mamili diri, no? But then again, we have to look at that there are actually four categories DI for us to really what you call this, implement ICT in our classroom. Okay, so it may pwede siya that we have to have trainings na ICT as main content focus, or you can have ICT as facilitating or networking technology, or you can have training for ICT as part of content or method, somewhat like that. Okay, so we have different here, no, na nakadepende na siya. Okay, I think this one, I do not know really, no, but I will siguro I will check if this particular framework gigamit ba niya siya sa DepEd, no? Because ang DepEd magod, they have their ICT trainings pa lang sa mga pila ka tuig. Okay. And then nganong na mga trainings, because MSU IIT way back pa nga nag-work ko sa IIT, our department is actually part, or the College of Education of MSU IIT is part of training hubs niya sa ICT. So that is why ang mga teachers, ang mga kauban ako ng mga teachers dira, they are trainers of ICT. And one of those is now the Dean of the College of Education, that is Amelia Tibuan. Okay. Actually, Dr. Amelia Tibuan is the Intel visionary. No, she is the representative from the Philippines. No, when it is sa Intel, Intel Teach. Okay. So, naka-remember ko murag si Ma'am Ami kay naka-travel siya US because of that training. Okay. That's it, no? Okay, basta mo na siya ang framework nato sa to ang teacher training. Okay, nakadepende if again the teacher training would have focus on ICT as main content or bisag asa na. Okay. The last framework that for language education learning plans we have is the UNESCO ICT competency framework for teachers. Having a society that is increasingly based on information and knowledge, and with the ubiquity of ICT for instruction, UNESCO was able to develop ICT competence framework for teachers, UNESCO 2018. So I think this is the framework I will be showing you later. It aims to promote educational reform and sustainable economic development anchored on the principles and objectives of the Millennium Development Goals. We have, of course, the IFA education for all, the UN literacy decade, or the UNLD, and the decade of education for sustainable development. Mind you, everyone, that if you are going to look at the ICT competency framework of UNESCO, it is actually embedded not just for ICT integration to the teaching learning process, but also to social, economic, and of course cultural matters. So now sila naka-embed ana. Okay, so this is now the framework, the ICT competency framework for teachers, UNESCO 2018. We have here the different level. We have understanding ICT and education. We have curriculum and assessment. We have pedagogy. We have application of digital skills. We have organization and administration. We have teacher professional learning. Nalalay siya nga level dira no kung unsay pwede natong buhaton. In the first one, if you're going to look at understanding ICT and education, ang naa diri is more on policy understanding and then policy application and policy innovation. Okay, because we have to understand why do we have to have ICT in the education era, no? And then if we're going to have pedagogy naman, that is more on ICT enhanced teaching, complex problem solving, and of course self-management. So it's more on how to no ng mga ICT integration to education. Okay, so that is the framework of ICT competency framework for teachers by UNESCO. The framework also specifically aims to equip teachers to be able to do their roles, achieving the following societal goals. So I've been telling you that sa UNESCO la education approach in the framework because it's not just integrating ICT to the teaching learning process, but also to the society, to economy, and of course to culture, somewhat like that. Okay. So the first one is build workforces that have ICT skills and are reflective, creative, and adept at problem solving in order to generate knowledge. The other one is enable people to be knowledgeable and resourceful so they're able to make informed choices, manage their lives effectively, and realize their potential. This is, if we're going to look at their aims, no, ang aims ato ang framework, big word jud kay siya, no? It's beyond using technology to enhance the teaching learning process. Now it's all about the holistic approach on the outside. Pag yun. Encourage all members of society, irrespective of gender, language, age, background, location, and differing abilities, to participate fully in society and influence the decisions that affect their lives. So again, I've been telling you this is beyond teaching learning process. No, it's more on societal impact. Pag yun. And of course, the last one would be foster cross-cultural understanding, tolerance, and peaceful resolution of conflict. If you're going to read them, you can ponder how can I integrate ICT with those things, no? Okay, but then again, naana siya, especially sa atong language education, we really have to look into it. That is why if you're going to look at the curriculum framework of Filipino and English, naa sila mga readings that could give you societal issues, cultural issues, and so on. Okay. Okay. And the last one would be when it comes to CHED, no? This one is the CHED Memorandum Order of PSED because English and Filipino belongs here. So dito tayo humugot bakit ganito yung curriculum ninyo because that is based on CHED Memorandum Order number 75 series of 2017, the policy standards and guidelines for Bachelor of Secondary Education, which Filipino is a part here. So the Commission on Higher Education through its PSGs requires the integration of ICTs in language teaching and learning. That is why you have your TTL1 and then of course you have your FED110 specifically. Hence, the ICT competency framework for teachers is very useful to support the standards as they will serve as a guide to assist the teachers to successfully integrate into the language classroom. I remind you that ang ginamit na framework ng CHED is the ICT, what do you call this? The ICT, where is that? The ICT competency framework for teachers. No katong upat ka buok, no? Let's go back. So this one. So this is the framework that that is being implemented to CHED, no, when it comes to ICT. So sa tuwa diri we have our most likely we are to have learning how to use ICT data pita, no? We ICT as part of content or methods na ataan na. And then we have ICT as core delivery technology. We also have that. ICT as main content focus kana siya. And then ICT as facilitating or networking technology. So kana silang upat dira integrate na siya, and that is the framework that is being used by Shed when it comes to ICT integration. So that's the reason why you have your TTL1 and then FED110. Okay. Through the framework, the language teachers may structure their learning environment in new ways. Of course, they have to merge new technology and pedagogy. They have to develop socially active classrooms and encourage cooperative interactions, collaborative learning, and group work. Okay. So muna nga busy kayo ang mga societal issues diri, no? Actually, the challenging part here lang of being a language education teacher is to how to filter everything, because most of the time they will be using words here because they are to use ICT ra ba, and then of course when we are to use technology we are interacting people, and then um, just to make sure for the language education teachers that they really have to guide their students when it comes to different activities involving technology, especially that they're incorporating technology to words. No? Okay. I think that's it. I hope that is very clear. And that is the end of Module 2, Lesson 2. Thank you so much for listening. And you will be